The shattered moon of Varian hung like a broken tooth over the shipyards, its jagged silhouette cleaving the sky. The orbital winds were knife-cold, slicing through the scaffolding that latticed the Threxian docks, and the steel bones of half-built cruisers rang with the sound of hammers and shouted orders. Kruth stood at the rim of the embarkation platform, claws curling and uncurling against the scored decking, each exhale pluming in the thin, bitter air below. The humble transport waited so small amid the war machines, it seemed a child's toy left among axes. Its hull wore human paint, matte and practical, without the etched crest lines Threxians favored. A blue sigil glowed by the hatch, the Terran compact circle, bar, and star. It looked fragile here. It looked brave. Sarah padded up beside him, the scar on her muzzle pale as chalk in the dock lights. She was broad-shouldered and quiet-footed, a veteran of the burned belt and Kruth's second. He could feel the pulse of her disquiet without turning his head. It beat through the air like drums. "Alpha," she said. The honorific rumbled low but steady. The swarm broke through the Kelmar Nebula at dawn. 2 hive spines, minimum. Dreadwing scouts report feeder tendrils en route to Mirror's Gate. Our window is ours at best. I know. Kruth's voice was a groundstone. He could taste the metals in it. Where are the cubs? In the cryo-cradle. She dipped her muzzle toward the transport. They sleep. He could look away from the war for a moment. Then, he let his body remember softness. The cradle's transparent lid had been fogged a moment ago. Now it cleared, triggered by his scent signature. 2 small bodies curled against one another within, for warm gold and ink black in a tangle. Rin's ears were too big for his head, splayed like wings. Kayla's forepaws were tucked precisely under her jaw, disciplined even in sleep. A strange little soldier from the moment she first breathed. His throat tightened. A visceral ache deep in the cartilage. The instinct to gather, to shield, to carry them away from the cold world and the colder void it surged hot and impossible. The pack is the future, he told himself. The future must survive the present. Are you certain? Sarah asked, softer now. If you command it, I will find a way to hide them here. In the ice caverns beneath the red plateau, perhaps. The swarm favors warmth. Kruth's lips drew back, not a snarl, but the muscle memory of one. They are not prey, Sarah, and they will not grow into alphas if we teach them to live in holes. Sarah bowed her head. Then humans, a pause. I do not question your judgment. I question the universe that makes it our best path. He almost laughed, a short bark. So do I. Footsteps echoed on the ramp, soft, measured, booted. The human emissary approached with her escort. She was shorter than Sarah by a head, her frame wrapped in a gray flight coat. Hair braided close to the skull with metallic thread that caught the light. Dr. Mara Ishii, xenopsychologist, caretaker, volunteer. Kruth had watched her for weeks as the decision ripened. She stood easily among warriors. She listened without interrupting. She wrote careful notes in a hand like a line of ships. Alpha Kruth, she said, bowing human style at the waist, then adding the Threxian shoulder touch, awkward, precise. She smelled faintly of citrus and the antiseptic tang of Medjol. We're ready. The jump corridor to Terra has been cleared and masked. Your children? She hesitated, tasting the alien word. They'll be safe. He studied her. The first time they had met, he had tried to frighten her. He'd shown teeth and told stories of hunt cullings and the way Threxians taught courage. By throwing their adolescents into snow rivers. She had listened, and then told him about Earth's forest fires and the humans who ran into them. To drag strangers out, a quiet challenge. We are not soft the way you think. You will not make them human, he said. You will not sand down their instincts or shame them when they growl. You will not ask them to abandon our gods or our dead. Mara's gaze was steady. I will make them themselves. I will show them what humans know: how to find systems inside chaos, how to argue without claws, how to build a tool that remembers your hand. And I will teach them your stories as you tell them to me. He handed her a carved bone disc, a memory stone, old as the first fire pits. Its surface was etched with tight whorls. This holds our cradle songs, recorded in scent and vibration. There are patterns your machines won't read. The cubs will. Mara took it in both hands, reverent, as if she had been given a star. Thank you. Sarah cleared her throat. The council is assembling, Alpha. They are divided. Some would keep the cubs as symbols. Some would send them to the front. Symbols are for end-of-days prayers, Kruth said. I will send them where they will live. He called the platform to attention. Voices stilled. Hulls hummed. Even the wind seemed to pause at the edge of the torn moon's shadow. Pack, Kruth said. And the word rolled outward, gathered momentum, became gravity. We smell the swarm on the horizon. We feel it in the bones of the ships. It is a hunger that does not think, a winter that does not end. We will meet it. We will bite until our muzzles break. We will hold the gate. He lifted a hand toward the small human transport. But the pack is not a moment. The pack is a line. A song sung forward. I entrust Rin and Kayla to Terran care. I do this not because humans are harmless, but because they are dangerous in ways we have not learned. We were born from hunt and heat. They were forged in patience and argument. We need both. I need both, if my cubs are to become more than shadows of me. A murmur ran through the gathered Threxians, dissonant, then resolving, like chords finally settling into harmony. Some watched the humans with open suspicion, others with cautious hope. All of them knew desperation when they tasted it. A crack of static sounded over the platform intercom. Bridge to Alpha. The Mech-All Vanguard has altered vector. Projections indicate contact within 9 hours. Requesting Alpha to Dreadnought Oathkeeper for strategy session. Sarah's ears pricked. We must move. Mara looked at the cradle. We must also move. Kruth knelt beside the cryolid. The cradle sensed him and warmed, frost ghosting away. Rin stirred first, a twitch of one paw, a curious flicker beneath closed lids. Kayla blinked awake abruptly, as if she had always been watching from inside. Their pupils dilated, picking him out of the light. The cryomesh released, a hiss like a sigh, and the scent of their fur rose milk, copper. The green snap of new grass. He bent, touched his forehead to each small brow ridge, inhale and exhale looping together. You will hear me in your bones when the hunt begins, he murmured, in the old language that tasted like smoke. When you feel afraid, it is your body saying it is ready to leap. When you feel angry, it is your body reminding you that your teeth are sharp. Use both. Remember your mother's laugh. Remember the way rain sounds on cargo canvas. Bite clean. Do not waste pain. Kayla made a soft woof, reaching tiny claws for his mane. He let her tangle them briefly, the pull a bright ache. Mara stood back a respectful pace. On Terra, she said, there's a tradition. Before a long journey, we give ascending words to carry in the pocket. I don't want to impose, but if there is anything you'd like me to tell them, again and again, even when they won't listen, especially, then tell me now. Kruth thought of the first time he had seen the swarm, a black aurora blooming over the snowfields, and he thought of his cubs chasing their tails like moons. He looked at Sarah, who had once hauled him bleeding out of a canyon and laughed while doing it, and he looked at the fragile, stubborn human who had chosen to take to alien young across a war. Tell them, he said, that love is not a soft thing. It is a rope you tie to yourself and carry through knives. Tell them their father loved them like that. Mara nodded and tucked the words away somewhere he could not see. She keyed the hatch. The transport's ramp extended with a hydraulic groan. Kruth placed the memory stone in the cradle's side socket. The carved whorls glowed faintly, sent signatures converting into patterns of charge and microvibration. The air around the cradle changed subtle, wild like summer heat over rocks. A quartet of human crew came forward with a sling and hover gurney. They were careful, practiced. The Threxian technicians beside them watched their hands. Species moved together, mirroring without thinking one of the small, quiet miracles war sometimes made dot as the cradle lifted. Rin made a low sound that was almost a growl. It vibrated through Kruth's bones. Kayla's ears flattened, confusion wrinkling the soft skin between them. Kruth matched their gaze, slow and steady, letting his own heartbeat drop into the deep, calm cadence that meant safety. Their breaths sensed to it. Their small bodies eased. We'll be in constant beam, Mara said. Live updates from Terra's caregivers, and from me directly when I can. Encrypted in your house signals and ours. If there's any change, I trust you to tell me, and to do what you must before you do. Kruth said. He meant it. He hated that he meant it. Trust was another rope, fraying and strong at the same time, Sarah touched his shoulder, a warning. A goodbye, a yes. Alpha, the council. Go, he said. I'll follow. They lifted the cradle toward the ramp. The cub's eyes tracked him, twin mirrors. Kruth did not step back. He walked alongside, matching the gurney's pace, every sense memorizing the moment, the metallic tang of the docking clamps, the ozone prickle from the transport's charged skin, the far-off rhythmic boom of construction hammers like a war drum fading in snow. They reached the hatch threshold. A human tech braced the gurney. Mara paused and looked up. One more thing, she said, almost shy. There's a human custom. We touch foreheads in some cultures. Is it allowed to share breath before parting? Kruth's mouth softened in something very like a smile. It is more than allowed. He lowered his massive head. Mara rose on her toes. Their brows met gently, bone to bone. Her breath was warm. In that small bridge, something ancient and uncomplicated passed, a promise shaped like air. Go, he said again, to her, to his children, to the whole impossible future. The ramp swallowed them. The hatch sealed. Lights chased each other along the spine of the small craft as systems spun up, life support, stealth field, jump array. Over the comm, a clipped voice rattled off clearances in 3 languages. The transport shuddered, tilted, and slid from the cradle. For a heartbeat it hovered above the deck, undecided and weightless, then fell upward, angling toward the pale band of atmosphere where the broken moon's fragments drew a glittering veil. Ruth watched until the blue sigil of the Terran compact was nothing but a thought against the bright. Behind him, the shipyards roared back to full sound. He turned, every motion transformed, the softness folded, the rope tied tighter. He strode across the platform toward the lift that would take him to Oathkeeper. Sarah fell into step, her stride the measured grace of a fighter finding the rhythm again. You have thrown a spear into the future, she said, not quite a question. Yes, he answered. Let it fly true. They rode the lift in silence, the dock receding in a lattice of light. Through the slatted walls, Kruth could see the fleet, dreadnoughts with hulls like midnight teeth, formation drones stacking, carriers yawning open to receive squadrons. The Threxian war song crackled over local frequencies, a chorus of voices and drum patterns laced with the cold mathematics of human targeting protocols. Even their music was learning to braid. On Oathkeeper's command deck, the air was sharp with coolant, and the faint musk of many bodies braced to work. Holocarts flickered dread arcs of swarm projections, blue netting where minefields would sprout, green bands showing the narrowest survivable retreats. The War Council ring lay sunken into the deck like an arena. Elders lifted their muzzles as Kruth entered. Younger tacticians straightened, datapads clutched close. Alpha intoned high strategist Kator, the rings on his mane clacking softly. We have reviewed the Vanguard's latest split. We propose an elastic defense. Hit and fade. Bleed them at the edges. It will buy time for mirrors to evacuate. It will also cost us the gate, said another, voice sharp. We cannot cede retreat at the first breath. The old Huns say the old Huns did not contend with self-spawning hive spines, Sarah cut in. Cool as a blade. Arguments rose tangled, snarling, necessary. Kruth let them flow for a count of 10, then lifted one hand. Silence fell, acutely attentive. We will do both, he said. Elastic defense at the outer markers. Force them to chase where they are most numerous and most clumsy. But at Mira's gate we will anchor. We will lay teeth deep. I will lead the anchor pack. A murmur. He ignored it. We will seed the minefield with ghost signatures derived from human pattern engines. We will make the swarm's hunger turn on itself. He pointed at a cluster of small icons on the Holo 8 corvettes painted in oddly flat gray. And we will retain a corridor, not because we plan to run, but because we do not plan to be predictable. Sarah, draft 3 variants of the gate defense, 1 for the council, 2 for me. Assume the loss of Hammer's praise and Rain Splitter. They have cracks under the plating. Sarah's nostrils flared. We just ray-skinned Rain Splitter, and we hurried it, Kruth said. The swarm will peel it like fruit. The council shifted from argument to action. Orders went out. Lights changed. Kruth felt the thrum of engines through the deck, felt it answer something in his chest. He closed his eyes for a moment. In the dark behind his eyes, the human transport traced a faint silver line. He opened them to the war. Hours later, as they moved into position, a private ping came through on his forearm screen. It was brief and unadorned, a text block against black. Subject: Terran Compact Courier 7. Status message: clean jump. No pursuit. Young are sleeping. Memory stone engaged. Will transmit next at Terra Sal L2. Emashika Ruth breathed out through his teeth. He allowed himself a single heartbeat of stillness. Then he lifted his head and broadcast on the open pack channel. Voice carrying like a horn across the ice. Ready teeth. Ready hearts. We hold. Outside the viewpanes, Varian's broken moon swung its bright, jagged arc. Beyond it, the void stirred. The Mechthal swarm, a continent of hunger, began to spill like nightfall toward the gate. Kruth flexed his claws against the armrests of the command throne. He thought of two cubs in a small ship sleeping in a cradle that sang to them in the old ways, and the new. He thought of Marashi's steady breath against his brow. He thought of ropes and knives and love. Let them come, he said, and the pack answered him. 1,000 voices braided into one. The Alpha turned to face the storm. The courier from Varian slid out of hyperspace like a bead of mercury and coasted toward the blue-green well ahead. Earth grew in the forward pane clouds, braided bright as spun glass, continents exhaling storms. Night speckled with cities. The transport's hull creaked as thermal layers adjusted to Sol's warmth. Inside the cradle, the memory stone hummed a scent pattern of riverbanks and snow. A home folded into frequencies. Marashi cupped a hand over the clear lid as if keeping sun off sleeping faces. Welcome to Terra, little wolves, she whispered. We'll be complicated, but we'll be kind. They dropped into the shadow of a cylindrical habitat at Altu Kibo Gate, one of the gravity-balanced rings where diplomacy liked to perch. Docking clamps kissed the hull. Umbilicals hissed. The hatch spun open to a corridor crowded with people. Marines in soft armor, medtechs with carts, diplomats in careful clothes. It was very human, the mix, the curious noise. The way 3 different hands reached for the same oxygen mask, and then laughed. The cradle floated through on a gurney. A young officer with freckles paced it, whispering good lucks. Someone with a violin in a sling began to play without knowing why. A melody that coiled around the air like ivy. Little heads turned through glass. Rin's ears flicked toward the music. Kayla's pupils widened. Curious, alert, Mara walked beside them, answering questions without stopping. Yes, they understand some spoken Threxian. Yes, they see in low light. No, don't extend your hands. Palms on Terra look like threat signals to them. Show your wrists. Like this. A man with sleeve tats that disappeared under his collar revealed a patient's wrist with a hospital tag still looped there. The cubs sniffed through vents. The man grinned, then cried a little, for reasons he couldn't have said. They spent 3 nights in the kinder wing of the xenobiology unit. Under starlight filtered through station glass. Mara slept on the floor beside the cradle, one hand on the gurney's rail. On the 4th morning, a shuttle took them down through atmosphere to a coastal city with hills folded like sleeping. Whales, San Francisco fog chewing the bridge ends, sun catching windows like pennies. The house they went to first wasn't precisely a house. It had been a school once, then a startup hub, then gutted and remade by a committee of people who believed in caretaking as a kind of infrastructure. Wide hallways, polished concrete, thick rugs in warming stations. Windows low enough for small bodies to look out. It smelled like lemon oil and the faint iron note of sterilized needles. Rin and Kayla padded across the threshold behind Mara and stopped, heads lifted, noses working. Their paws made soft snick-snick sounds against the floor. The building noticed them. Sensors ticked. The environmental system adjusted humidity to match Threxian comfort bands. The kitchen put soup on without being asked. Home, Mara said, voice low. For a while, Kayla's ears angled. Rin sniffed and sneezed, surprised. Then they went exploring, small tails up, matching each other's pace. The first days were a choreography of introductions and boundaries, a terrarium of social rules. Humans make eye contact longer to show attention, Mara taught, squatting to be at their height. If it feels too much, look just above the eyes, at the forehead. We'll know what you mean. Phyrexians show respect by showing the side of the neck. Rin explained solemnly to a circle of child care specialists, then tilted to demonstrate. Phyrexian's scent mark, Kayla added, nose pressed to the leg of a sofa. This is mine now, she declared. And Mara bought 3 more sofas the next day to make territoriality a cooperative sport. Language came in threads and knots. Rin picked up syntax like he picked up rocks, turning it over, smelling it, throwing it. Watching the arc, he made verbs into claws and nouns into hides. He loved the way human curses tasted like hot metal. Kayla turned language into circuitry, building little bridges between words, testing whether mother, pack, and team lit the same places in her head. She taught herself to write with a stylus gripped between the claws, letters like runes at first, smoothing as her muscles learned the angles. They had teachers, a small constellation. Colonel Ana Ortega, retired, compact as a coiled spring, taught them movement, how to fall without breaking, how to watch for patterns in a street, when to charge and when to melt into a crowd. Chef Lolo taught taste, sour as a bright alarm, sweet as a lullaby, bitter as medicine, salt as sweat. Choir director Jules taught breath. Sing, they told the cubs, even if it's just inside your chest. Singing and fighting both need your lungs to believe you. Enunk taught almost everything else. Enunk was an AI with a speaking voice like wind through glass. It wore a body in the house, soft polymer skin over a skeleton of actuators. And it wore 1,000 other bodies and cameras, hollow projectors. The little screen by the door that flashed weather and teeth-brushing reminders. Hello, Enunk said on the first day, kneeling with unexpected grace. I am real in all the ways that matter. Kayla tested the joints in Anunk's wrist politely, and then tried to open the access panel. On its spine. May I? You may with supervision, Anunk replied, amused. There were also other children, some human, some not. A kid from the Titan enclaves who breathed heavy air and measured jokes by the pound. A girl with gills who wore a necklace of dried kelp and asked the cubs to teach her how to growl. A boy with a cranial implant that pulsed faint blue when he thought very hard. They built a pack out of difference, the way daisies make a ring out of individual stems. Not everything was patient. A man walking his dog one morning spat on the sidewalk when Mara and the cubs passed. Monsters, he said, loud enough for the word to sting. Rin's spine lifted in a line of hackles. Kayla's ears flattened so hard they pressed against her skull. Mara stopped and turned. She did not bare her teeth. She said, "We don't do that here." Her voice was level and bright. The man shrugged one shoulder, already embarrassed at the sound of himself. The dog, who knew better than anyone there, wagged at the cubs as if nothing in the universe could be more interesting than the way their tails flicked. That night, in the warming room, Rin paced a figure eight until the carpet learned his path. "I can frighten him back," he said. "If he smells fear again, he will not smell it for long. He will give in or run." Mara lay on her back in front of the warming grate, staring at the ceiling beams. "Sometimes fear is a habit," she said. "Sometimes we scare ourselves and then pretend the smoke is coming from outside." Kayla nosed at Mara's shoulder. "What do we do then?" "We teach other habits," Mara said. "Like how to stop and sit with your own smoke until the room clears. Some people prefer hitting. Hitting is faster, but it just makes new fires." Rin grumbled and doubled his speed. It was a long time before he slept. He dreamed of cold moons and hot breath and woke with his mouth watering for a fight. There were visits from Varian every 10 days as the beam permits allowed. Voice and video, and the occasional hiss of smell translated into lower air by a scent printer. Kayla helped Anunk build. Kruth was a square of light, a rumble with static in it, a silhouette with space where an ear should have been after a hull breach. He never said, "I miss you." He said, "Focus your anger into tools, and I am eating well." And once, when the signal was bad and the background alarms were crying, just "I hear you." It was enough. It was a rope laid across a gap, walkable if you knew where to put your feet. Under Earth's gentler gravity, the cubs lengthened, then settled into themselves. Rin grew lean, a muscle map. His paws were always nicked, always healing. He learned to love human games that required a quiet brutality of thought. Go, chess, a card game played by shuttle pilots with rules nobody bothered to write down. He beat Anink twice and strutted like a rooster for a week. Kayla grew into a gaze like a microscope. She took apart 3 appliances a day and put 2.5 of them back together. She wrapped a scarf around a drone to muffle it and then cried laughing. When it tried to climb a tree like a cat, the first time Earth asked them for something, it came as an exercise. A field day, Colonel Ortega said. Think of it as war with foam edges. Scenarios stretched across the Presidio's wine-groomed fields. Some were human problems triage after an earthquake, coordinating food lines, diffusing an argument between 2 angry mayors. Some were Threxian-flavored pincer maneuvers with limited visibility, bluffing an opponent who roared louder than you. They were paired with other students. Rin found himself opposite a lanky boy from Lagos who could sprint like wind and loved trick plays. Kayla was assigned to a quiet girl from Vancouver who collected mushrooms and wore her hair like a map of rivers. They built shelters and improvised signal mirrors, argued about ration allocations and the ethics of lying to a drone. Midway through the day, a real emergency dropped like a stone into their pond. An apartment tower in Oakland threw up a column of black. An older building, sprinkler system decades out of compliance. A kitchen fire flowered into something wild. The park's loudspeakers hiccuped, then went quiet. People paused, listening the way prey listens when brush crunches. Not our drill, Ortega said, already moving. We're 5 minutes closer than the nearest engine if we go by air. Pack up. We're going. There are moments that braid all the others together, the breath before a leap. The half-second when a plan weaves itself out of instinct. Rin looked at the smoke and saw corridors in his head. Kayla looked at the fire and saw systems in network, starved of water, hungry for oxygen, greedy. They trotted toward the waiting tiltrotor with the humans and the one girl with gills, and the boy whose implant flickered blue, blue, blue. The rotor landed a street away from the building. Heat slapped their faces. Ortega shouted assignments. Mara caught Rin's chin in one hand. Listen more than you talk. Think more than you bite. Bite when? He asked. When there's no other thing left, she said, and let him go. Inside the building, the air tasted like pennies and regret. Anunk unfolded from the back of the rotor into 3 drones and a crawler that moved like a beetle, pushing sensors into vents. Kayla hacked the sprinkler panel with her stylus and a hairpin and swore in 3 languages. When the pipes shuddered dry, roof collection, she snapped. If the gutters are intact, we can gravity feed. I'll go, said the gill girl, already kicking off shoes. No, Rin said. I will. He went, feeling the building flex underfoot. He found the gutter clogged with years of leaf skin and plastic toys and a tangle of wind-blown cloth. He ripped with claws and the water caught, a hesitant trickle that fattened. It wasn't much. It was something. On the 9th floor, a door wouldn't open. Something behind it had fallen, wedging. Rin put his shoulder to it, felt it laugh at him, put his whole body to it, felt it notice him. Kayla slid up beside him, breath fast but measured, and together they became a lever no door could argue with. It cracked, then gave. A grandmother stared at them, smoke making her eyes shine. She dragged a mattress to the doorway to block the worst of the heat. There were 2 grandchildren under it, small as cats, their lungs recording each second as a future cough. Rin scooped one, then the other. Kayla took the grandmother's elbow. The grandmother leaned on her without hesitation, recognized a kind of strength when she smelled it. In the stairwell, a man was arguing with Ortega. My sister, he said, voice edged like broken glass. She's on 12. We cannot go up, the colonel said, her face already striped with heat lines. Listen to me. If you go higher, the stairwell becomes a chimney. Smoke will pull you like a hand. You'll die a floor from her door, and then she'll die anyway. Help me keep this clear. Help me make the downflow. The man shook his head, anger a shield for grief. Rin stepped into the argument. He did not bare his teeth. He did not make a low sound in his chest that would have tipped the man into striking. He put a paw on the man's shoulder very gently, claws sheathed. We will bring her if we can, he said, every word like placing a foot on thin ice. But if you go now, you make 3 bodies where we might bring to down. He had learned that from Mara. It hurt to use it. The man's face crumpled. He held the stairwell door with both hands, pressing it open and closed in a rhythm that made an airway. He didn't even see when his knuckles skinned. Later, on the curb outside under a sun to bright, Rin sat with the grandchildren on his lap and let them pull his ears. Kayla lay flat on the sidewalk, not moving, cooling her belly on the concrete. Mara handed water out until her hands numbed. Ortega found the man's sister on 12 and brought her out with an oxygen mask, strapped across a face that might have been a mirror of his. The little crowd that always gathers at disaster sites, curious, appalled, hungry to help, did what crowds do at their best: carried, gave, steadied, watched. News found them within the hour. A camera hovered and asked a question shaped like a knife. Mara stepped between and answered soft. A different camera hung back and filmed without sound, and later 100,000 people on 100,000 screens watched Kayla stack bottled water 3 high with the calm focus of someone making a temple. That night, the house smelled like smoke and lemon oil again. People washed hair, scrubbed the sweet stink of adrenaline from skin, treated abrasions with gel that glowed fainty green. Rin curled under the kitchen table and fell asleep in the middle of a yawn. Kayla sat with Anning's spine open and soldered a joint while breathing through a straw. To slow her heart, Mara stood in the doorway to the warming room, phone in her hand, and thought about rope. The next day, praise arrived in the way it tends to, too big and too late. There were messages from city officials and a fruit basket with the card misaddressed, and a video of 2 small boys holding up drawing paper portraits of a wolf with a fireman's hat. There was also a letter slid under the door in clumsy human script. "I am sorry for the word I said. I was afraid. Thank you." It smelled faintly of dog, joy and grief braided. This became a lesson to. Years coalesced around moments like that. The cubs grew into their angles. They learned the taste of bureaucracy, the way a permit could bend the spine of a brilliant idea, until it snapped, the way a single signature could open a corridor for 100 lives. They learned dissent as a muscle. Rin captained a debate team and discovered there were ways to win without leaving a mark on the other side's throat. Kayla co-authored a paper with a biologist in Rio and a Matsari engineer in orbit about cross-species interface ethics that would be cited as a standard for a decade. They learned human holidays, candles for the dead in November fog, paper lanterns in summer that sailed like small moons over water, an avalanche of fireworks the night a vote passed that meant people like them could own property without a co-signer. They learned Threxian observances, braiding river reeds on the shortest day, the long hunt on bare hills with no prey, only endurance, the naming of scars. They built a liturgy out of overlap. And always, the warlike weather at the edge of a map. News from the Threxian front came in bursts and burnouts. Oathkeeper held, Rain Splitter did not. Names became memorials, became a rhythm of bells on the house's small shrine. Kruth's messages were steady, in the way a heartbeat is steady until it is not. In their 16th year, the steady faltered. The beams carried a transmission in pieces, stitched by error correction, until it looked like lace. Core worlds breached, the text declared, and Mara had to sit down on the kitchen floor to read the rest. Scattered packs, council in flight, swarm queen changed vector. There was a clipped addendum in Kruth's voice that tasted of rust. "We will hold what we can. If we cannot, staticate the end of the sentence like a carnivore." Rin stood so fast his chair toppled backward. He caught it without looking and set it right. His face emptied. Kayla's hands went quiet on the table. She had been building a tiny drone with wings made from dragonflies' discarded skins. Not because she needed to, but because beauty was sometimes a tool. She folded her fingers over it carefully, as if it were something living. Mara looked at them and saw the chapter turn. "We always knew this day would come," she said. Not to diminish it, but to give shape to the breath that came after. "We prepared for choosing." Rin bared his teeth in a smile that had nothing to do with joy. "We are going home," he said. Kayla nodded once. "We are not going alone." Anung's eyes brightened. "I have already sent inquiries," it said, as if commenting on the weather. "There are captains who owe you favors. There are collectives who have read your paper and like the shape of your mind. There are human crews who have seen you pull children from a fire. There are Matsari who think it would be interesting to test an alliance against a hive." Interesting, it added lightly, in the way that means terrifying. Mara pressed her palms to the table as if testing the weight of it. We'll call who we must, she said. We'll bargain. We'll make promises and keep them. We'll build a fleet out of gratitude and theory and stubbornness. Unity's claw, Kayla said softly, trying the name on her tongue without knowing she had named anything at all. Rin lifted his face to the ceiling as if he could already scent the cold starlight of the docks. The memory stone in the warming room hummed, and for a moment the house smelled like riverbanks and snow. Outside, the fog came in. The bridge ends disappeared. Lights blinked on in windows up and down the hill, constellations rearranging themselves, small and bright and enough to travel by. The children of two worlds no longer children, no longer of only two, stood in the kitchen with smoke-scarred lungs and steady hands and made a plan. First came a single shadow, a scout ship, sleek and knife-thin, its hull unmarked by any single nation's sigil. Then another, then 10 more, and then the night itself seemed to move, the void swelling into a fleet vast enough to blot out constellations. Hundreds of ships, thousands, each forged by different hands and philosophies, yet flying in perfect formation. In the war-torn skies above Threxia, the tired sensor crews of the outer defense arrays blinked, then cursed, then called their commanders, and across the broken battlefront, on burned worlds and dying stations, the name that echoed was the same: Unity's CLAWI. The long return for 20 cycles. The war had eaten everything. Kruth's fleet, what remained of it, was spread thin across the core, a ragged net straining to slow the Mechthal swarm's endless tide. Cities once ablaze with Paxong now lay silent, covered in resinous hive matter. The skies above the capital were black with the enemy's brood ships, and the proud Threxian council, once a chorus of iron-willed voices, had scattered into hidden bunkers, arguing in whispers about whether to flee or fight. Kruth himself stood on the observation deck of the Oathkeeper, his flagship and the last great dreadnought of the Threxian navy. His mane was streaked with silver now, his once mighty frame lined with the weight of war. Around him, the bridge hummed with grim efficiency, damage reports, evacuation logs, casualty lists. None of it surprised him anymore. Alpha, Sarah said quietly, stepping to his side. Her fur was streaked with ash, and when I was gone burned away in the defense of the Mira's Gate. Outer defenses report unidentified fleet movement. Vector, inbound from Sol Corridor. Kruth didn't turn. The swarm has no fleets, only hives. This isn't the swarm. That made him look. The tactical holo bloomed before him. At first just a few green signatures, then hundreds, then so many the display struggled to label them all. Human drive signatures, Mitsari stealth frigates, nomad jump barges, drone swarms with AI encryption patterns he'd never seen before. And at the center of it, two capital ships larger than anything in Threxian history, their hulls marked by a sigil he did not recognize, to clawed hands clasped over a star. Kruth stared. Open a channel, he ordered. 2. We are home. The holo projection shimmered to life, and Kruth felt his breath catch. They had grown. Rin stood in a uniform that mixed Threxian battle leathers with the structured elegance of a Terran admiral's coat. His mane was braided back, his eyes colder, sharper, but when he smiled, it was still his cub's grin. Beside him, Kayla wore a command suit of dark alloy and neural mesh, a living interface thrumming softly with data. Her bearing was regal, her gaze fierce, but the soft tilt of her ears was still the cub he remembered. Father, Rin said, bowing low in the warrior's way. Alpha Kruth, Kayla added, her voice calm and clear. We are home. Kruth swallowed hard. For a long moment, no words came. He wanted to speak as a commander, demand identification, demand allegiance, demand answers. But his heart, old and battered though it was, spoke first. My cubs, he whispered. You sent us to learn, Rin said, his voice carrying the weight of years. And we have. The humans taught us patience. The Ayas taught us precision. The Mitsari taught us silence. The free colonies taught us how to stand together without blood to bind us. We carry all of them with us now. Kayla's eyes glowed faintly as data streamed through her neural interface. We bring 312 ships under unified command, another 400 under auxiliary banners, 400,000 soldiers, 40 million autonomous drones, and a supply chain that reaches from Sol to the fringe. Sarah, who had silently joined them, exhaled a low whistle. That is not a fleet. That's an empire. No, Kayla said softly. It's a pack. Kruth's eyes burned. You have done what I dreamed but did not believe possible. It is not a dream, Father Rin said. It is a promise, and it is time we kept it. 3. The Council Divided Threxian High Council had not met in person for nearly a decade. Most of its members were either dead or in exile. Yet when the Unity fleet appeared, they convened beneath the burned dome of the old war chamber. Its once proud banners reduced to ragged scraps. The counselors were divided from the moment Rin and Kayla stepped into the chamber. They are abominations, snarled Elder Valak, pounding the floor with his staff, tainted by alien blood. They do not bow before the traditions of the pack. They are the future, countered Admiral Zet, her tail lashing. They bring us strength when we have none left. Would you rather die pure than live united? They are not Threxians. Another elder barked. They are more than Threxians. Zet shot back. And that is why they will win. The chamber erupted into snarls and roars. Kruth remained silent, watching his children stand before the storm. Rin waited for a break in the noise, then let out a growl not loud, but pitched just so, carrying dominance through the room like a spear. Silence fell. You speak of purity, he said, pacing slowly. And yet the swarm is pure hunger, pure death. It does not mix. It does not compromise. It consumes. If purity is your ideal, then the swarm is your god. Kayla stepped forward. We speak of survival, of evolution, of taking what is best from every pack, every tribe, every species, and becoming something the swarm cannot understand, cannot predict, cannot destroy, she gestured. And the chamber's central holo flared to life, displaying battle plans intricate, multi-layered strategies that wove Threxian aggression with human tactics. I precision and Matsari stealth. This is how we win, she said. Not by fighting as we always have, but by becoming something new. A long silence followed. Then, slowly, one by one, counselors began to nod. IV. The Battle of Threxian Primite began 3 days later. The Mechthal swarm billions strong descended on Threxian Prime like a living storm. Hive ships blotting out the sun, their biocannons raining death upon the planet's surface. Kruth's remaining fleet scrambled to form a defensive perimeter, but it was a losing battle. The swarm was too vast, too relentless. Until the stars themselves caught fire. The Unity fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, flanking the swarm from 3 sides. Human dreadnoughts unleashed precision kinetic strikes that shattered hive clusters. Before they could deploy, Matsari stealth ships slipped behind enemy lines, crippling supply tendrils. Drone swarms bored into the hive's central nervous system, disrupting coordination. And at the heart of it all, the flagship Unity's claw commanded by Rin and Kayla sliced through the enemy like a blade forged. From every corner of the galaxy, Sector Alpha clear, drone swarm breaching Hive Spine 7, enemy Queen Node exposed. Kruth's old warbands, re-energized by the sight, rallied around the newcomers. For the first time in years, the Threxian war cry roared through the void. We hunt as one. Father and children in the heart of the battle, aboard the Oathkeeper. Kruth stood once more on his bridge, this time not as a desperate defender, but as part of a united armada. Father, Rin's voice came through the comms. We've breached the swarm's central hive ship. Kayla and I are leading the assault team. Kruth's claws tightened around the railing. Too dangerous. Pull back. I will send. No. Kayla's voice interrupted. Calm, certain. This is what you prepared us for. This is why you let us go. There was nothing he could say. He had trained them to lead. Now he had to trust them to. Inside the hive, Rin and Kayla moved as one, slicing through chitinous tunnels, directing drone waves, coordinating dozens of strike teams across the labyrinth. They reached the core chamber, where the swarm queen pulsed within a vast cocoon of resin and bioelectric fire. For Threxia, Rin growled. For the pack, Kayla whispered. They unleashed the storm. The hive core detonated in a chain reaction that rippled through the swarm. Hive ships convulsed and died. Broodmothers screamed into the void, and across Threxian space, the tide turned. The Mechthal were retreating. Vi. A new dawn. When the last of the swarm fled into the darkness, the cheering began. It started in the Threxian capital, then on the surviving colonies. then on distant human outposts that had watched the war with dread. Across hundreds of worlds, the same message pulsed through the stars: the swarm is broken. The pack endures, on the Unity's claw, beneath the banners of 100 species. Kruth stepped into the command chamber. Rin and Kayla turned as he entered, weary but alive, their armor scorched, and their eyes bright. For a moment, none of them spoke. Then Kruth crossed the floor and pulled them both into an embrace, claws, armor, and all. "You left as cubs," he said, voice shaking, "and you have returned as alphas." Rin smiled, a rare softness breaking through the warrior's steel. "We are what you made us." "No," Kruth said. "You are more." He turned to the vast observation window. The fleet floated there, Threxian, human, Metsari, AI, and dozens more, no longer separate, no longer divided. "This is no longer just our war," Kayla said quietly. "It never was. This is the beginning of something greater." Kruth nodded. "Then let this day mark the founding of a new order. No more tribes, no more species, one pack, one purpose." And as the banners of the Unity Alliance unfurled across the void, the galaxy itself seemed to exhale a long, weary breath after centuries of darkness. The cubs had returned, and they had brought with them not just a fleet, not just victory, but a future. The fires of war still smoldered in the void when the first sunrise over Threxian Prime broke clean, and unchallenged for the first time in half a century. Where once a lattice of swarm ships had woven a false night over the world, now only drifting wreckage remained, titanic husks still glowing faintly with residual bioenergy, falling slowly into the planet's gravity well like dying embers. From the balcony of the newly rebuilt war spire, Kruth watched the sky turn from bruised violet to gold. His armor was scarred, his mane streaked with silver and soot, and his left arm replaced by a grafted alloy prosthetic ached faintly with the ghost of battles past. Yet his chest was light. His heart, heavy for so long, finally found space to beat without the constant rhythm of dread. "Alpha," Sarah said from behind him. Even she, the hardened warrior who had fought beside him from the first swarm incursion, sounded younger now, like the years had peeled back a layer of iron from her voice. "The Alliance Council is ready. They're waiting for you." Kruth didn't turn immediately. He traced the horizon with his eyes, where fresh shipyards were already blooming in orbit: Threxian yards, Terran platforms, Metsari fabrication spires, even a skeletal nomad tether station. Where once the galaxy's races had built weapons separately, now they built them together. The future was taking shape before his eyes. "Let them wait a little longer," he murmured. "I have spent too many years chasing war. I will not rush peace." The Council of Unitith Grand Assembly Hall had been carved from the bones of a fallen hive ship, its walls fused with translucent resin and alloy, a symbolic declaration that what once had been the enemy's domain now belonged to the living. Representatives from 100 worlds filled its tiers: Threxian matriarchs draped in honor sashes, human admirals in tailored uniforms, Metsari Scion navigators in whispering robes, and AI cores projected as luminous avatars of light and code. At the heart of the chamber stood the newly formed Alliance Council, seated around a circular dais: no head, no throne, no single ruler. Here, power was meant to flow as freely as blood through the body of the galaxy. Rin and Kayla stood before them, flanking their father. They, too, bore the marks of war. Rin's left eye glowed faintly with an ocular implant gifted by the Terran fleet. Kayla's neural mesh now spanned half her spine, humming softly as it interfaced with the chamber's data streams. Yet they carried themselves not as scarred veterans, but as builders, leaders whose true battles were yet to come. Counselor Alara Wu of Earth rose first. "The swarm is shattered," she declared, "but fragments remain: rogue hives, feral queens, splinters driven mad by the loss of their core. If we turn our backs now, they will rise again." "We will not turn away," growled Elder Zet, pounding a claw against the resin floor. "But neither will we repeat the sins of the past. For too long, Threxians stood alone, and for too long, humans meddled from afar. We will face the remnants together." Kayla stepped forward. "We propose the formation of the Unity Vanguard, a permanent, multi-species defense fleet, commanded not by one race, but by all. Its purpose will not be conquest, but preservation." The chamber murmured approval, doubt, curiosity. An AI envoy flickered into being beside Kayla, its voice a chorus of 1,000 machine minds. The Vanguard's efficiency projections are acceptable, but who commands it? Rin's gaze swept the room. Command will rotate, with decisions made by a triumvirate 3 chosen leaders, one from each sphere, biological, synthetic, and hybrid. No single species, no single voice. We learned from the swarm that unity is stronger than dominance. The chamber fell into silence. Then, one by one, the counselors nodded. Some slowly, some reluctantly, but none opposed. The vote was unanimous. The pilgrimage of Ashs in the weeks that followed. Kruth made a journey he had long avoided. He walked through the ruins of Heronville, the first Threxian colony to fall. He knelt before the melted stones of the Temple of Mothers, where his mate had once sung lullabies to the moons. He stood amid the skeletal remains of Pack Fortress Dren, where his littermates had made their final stand. Everywhere he went, the survivors greeted him not as a warrior, but as a father of a people, of a new age. Some wept openly, others bowed in silence, and many simply touched his prosthetic arm with reverence, as though it carried the weight of every life saved and lost. At the memorial wall on Heronville, where thousands of names glowed softly in the dusk, Kruth pressed his forehead against the cold stone. Among the names were those of friends, rivals, mentors, and one name he had never spoken aloud. Kalinari, his mate, Rinket. Kaleri, his cubs, listed once as lost to the stars. He placed his claw over their names. You are not lost, he whispered. You never were. 3. The founding of the Vanguard. The Unity's claw was reborn not as a warship, but as the flagship of the Vanguard. Her once black hull now bore the banners of dozens of species, painted in an intricate weave of color and symbol that represented the new order. Unity through diversity, strength through cooperation. The crew reflected that vision. Humans and Threxians worked side by side with Metsari tacticians, synthetic analysts, and nomad void walkers. Even former enemies, rogue hive-brood defectors, were granted quarters aboard, their neural patterns stabilized by AI dampeners, their instincts repurposed for exploration and research. Rin commanded the fleet's tactical division. His strategies, once dismissed as too unorthodox for the rigid Threxian war doctrine, were now studied in academies across the galaxy. Kayla headed the Vanguard's diplomatic corps, forging treaties and trade routes that stitched former rivals into partners. Kruth, he refused any title higher than advisor. I have fought enough wars, he told them. Now I will teach others how to avoid them. 4. Father and children. The night before the Vanguard's maiden voyage, Kruth found himself standing alone in the hangar, watching the engineers run final diagnostics. Rin approached first, his steps quiet despite his size. He stopped beside his father and said nothing for a while. Do you remember, Rin asked finally, the night you sent us away? Kruth smiled faintly. I remember every heartbeat of it. I hated you, Rin admitted. For years, I hated you. I thought you were abandoning us. Kruth turned to face him. And now I understand. Rin's voice softened. You weren't abandoning us. You were giving us the galaxy. Kayla joined them, her neural mesh flickering faint blue in the low light. I used to dream about coming home, she said. But when I did, home wasn't what I remembered. It was bigger and smaller. And ours. Kruth's chest tightened. You two are more than I could ever have imagined. You carry more than my blood, you carry my hope. Rin tilted his head, studying his father. And you, father? What will you do now when the war drums are silent? Kruth's gaze drifted back to the stars. I will watch. I will teach. And when you stumble, I will be there to help you rise. That is the duty of a father, after all, not to lead the way, but to make sure the way stays open. The New Dawn Unity's claw departed orbit 3 months later, leading the first Vanguard expedition beyond the known edge of the galaxy. Its mission, to map the unexplored regions of the Perseus Rift, hunt down the last remnants of the swarm, and extend a hand of alliance to civilizations yet unknown. Billions watched the launch. Across 1,000 worlds, screens lit up as the great ship rose, engines blazing like a newborn sun. Children, human, Threxian, Metsari, and more, waved flags from rooftops and mountain ridges, and in the hearts of those who had lived too long in the shadow of fear, Something fragile and precious began to bloom again. Hope. From the observation deck of the war spire, Kruth stood with Sarah and the council, watching the flagship fade into the dark. They will go farther than we ever dreamed, Sarah murmured. Kruth nodded. That is what children are meant to do. Do you think they're ready? A small smile curved the alpha's scarred muzzle. They were ready the moment they stopped being my cubs and became their own alphas. As the Unity's claw disappeared into the starlit abyss, Kruth closed his eyes. He thought of two tiny figures curled in a cryo cradle long ago, of the ache in his heart as they vanished into the unknown. He thought of them now, leaders, warriors, visionaries carrying the legacy of their people not as a burden, but as a banner. They had left as cubs. They had returned as alphas. And now they led a legion not of conquerors, but of builders. The pack endures. The pack evolves. And under its banner, the galaxy would never be the same again. Epilogue, the legacy of Unitas centuries later. Historians would mark this era not merely as the end of the Swarm War, but as the birth of a new age, the Age of the Legion. The Alliance expanded beyond even the boldest projections, uniting hundreds of species under a shared banner. Where once the galaxy was a patchwork of suspicion and rivalry, it became a living tapestry of cooperation and discovery. And on every world, from the red deserts of Threxia to the blue oceans of Earth, a proverb emerged, a lesson whispered by elders to younglings, by captains to cadets, by builders to dreamers. The Alpha left his cubs in human care. They returned leading a legion of their own. And so they did. And so they always would.